What's up everybody, this is No More Op for part 2 of my Bivouac gear loadout series. This part is going to cover shelter and sleeping gear. Thought I'd cover this as one of the first areas because it's one of the broader subjects and it's going to vary a lot between person to person. So this is probably going to rock the boat, but I don't get real bent out of shape about the type of shelter or the latest and greatest in tents. To be totally honest, I usually prefer an improvised shelter because I can take advantage of sleeping next to a fire at night, and I don't have the increased weight of having to carry a tent out, and in my opinion it's just more G because it's a little bit more difficult to do. You've got to have a little bit more skill to build your own shelter and have a fire, keep yourself warm at night. Now that being said, in the warmer months, the mosquitoes in my area usually facilitate, or necessitate I should say, having a tent because that's just a pain in the ass. So, you know, I do have a couple of tents myself, standard run-of-the-mill, you know, nothing special there. I'm not even going to show them here. I may lay some pictures for you, but standard 3-season, 2 to 4 person, you know, tent is going to be good for a shelter in the warmer months. Like I said though, I usually don't get bent out of shape for it in the wintertime. I prefer the improvised shelter, the cooler months, even into fall once the bugs really die down. As far as 4-season tents go, I can just find a hell of a lot better ways to spend $400 plus that only keeps me, you know, those tents really don't keep you that much warmer than a 3-season. When it's really cold, and it usually gets cold here in the winter. This winter has been kind of an outlier to that, but you know, if you've got a good sleeping bag, you can use a 3-season tent in the wintertime if you want to, and I've done it before multiple times on some of our hunting trips, which it seems like every time we go it always is the coldest day of the year, but that's how it goes. So some general points on shelter types, besides what I've already covered. I have some experience with hammock shelters, but it's been quite a few years since I've actually used one, so I'm not the person to talk to as far as those go, but I know a lot of people that have success with them, and if you're one of those people, that's fine. Tarp shelters, like tents, there seems to be a race to see who can build the most expensive tarp. Now I use tarp shelters, and I build a lot of improvised shelters with tarps. I'll inlay some pictures of those. But to me, you know, I can go down to the local hardware store and get a 10 by 12 construction tarp for $3. There's no reason that I need to spend $100 on a tarp. Now, a lot of these tarps are supposed to be fire resistant, or they're, you know, extra heat reflection. Can't really speak to that. I've had plenty of warm nights with my $3 blue tarp from down the street. So that's my 2 cents on tarp shelters. Improvised shelters, in my opinion, are an essential skill that everyone should possess. If you're into, you know, staying out in the outdoors or hunting, camping, whatever it is, just because no matter how expensive the shelter you build, eventually, or with some bad luck, that shelter may become useless really quick. You know, you run into the wrong branch or fall on the wrong rock, and that tarp shelter is going to be nothing but a hole in it. So I think improvised shelters are something that everyone should take advantage of, and I think that it's also one of the most rewarding ways to spend your time outdoors, because it just makes you, you know, it's a more of a sense of accomplishment than putting up a tent and just sleeping in that. You know, I've had some great nights of sleep building a shelter and sleeping in it, I can tell you that much. Sleeping bags are obviously another important consideration for your gear loadout. Down, synthetic, hybrid, to bivvy or not to bivvy. A lot of different choices out there. Again, it seems like the fads have kind of made their way into that realm as well. There are some expensive options out there, but they don't have to be. I've used just about every type of bag over the course of the years, some synthetic, some down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some general points on these, and these are comparisons you can find all over the internet as far as their pros and cons. These are just some of my personal opinions. So the first thing we're going to talk about are down sleeping bags. Now, down sleeping bags are very lightweight and they're easily compressible. Ounce for ounce, synthetic can't compete with the warmth of down. It's just warmer ounce per ounce. And with proper care, a down sleeping bag is going to last a very, very long time. Now on the flip side, if down gets wet, it has a very long dry time and it loses its insulating capabilities. I usually just try to keep my sleeping bag dry. That's the best information I can give you. Don't get your bag wet and you don't have to worry about it. The other downside to down bags is that they're considerably more expensive than synthetic bags. So we're going to have to basically figure out, you have to figure out what your needs are, the temperatures that you're going to be facing, things like that, and also the frequency that you're going to be using your bag. But we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail after we go over synthetic bags. So, synthetic bags. This is a Eureka Silver City 30 degree bag, 30 degrees Fahrenheit for all of you on Celsius system. Synthetics are not bad choices. They are a lot more affordable, we'll say, than some of the down options out there. They do dry fast if you get them wet, and they are supposed to keep their insulating ability when wet. However, I recommend, again, just keeping your bag dry is usually the best way to roll with that. Some downsides on synthetic though, they will lose their warming qualities, their warming properties. The longer you have it, it does break down over time, and keeping it compressed will speed that process up. You can see I've got mine compressed right now because I've had this one for so long that it's kind of already lost most of its insulating abilities. And it says 30 degrees, but it's now about a 50 degree bag. So those are just some general basic points on the difference between bags, the down option and the synthetic option. Now, to help you choose, there's a couple considerations you're going to want to think about. Obviously, temperature that you're going to be in is going to be one. If you don't face that cold of a winter, or you're not into going out when it's that cold, then you can probably get away with a synthetic. On the other hand, if you're frequently in the woods in some of the colder months during winter time, synthetic may be a better option, or you may have to put up a few more bucks to get a thicker synthetic. Frequency of use is another thing that you're going to want to consider. Again, synthetic bags will over time lose their insulating abilities. So if you're a person that's out, multiple times a month, a down bag may be a better choice for you, simply because the wear and the frequency of use with that on a synthetic bag may cause you to go through these. So if you're at a point where you're buying synthetic bags and you go through one a season or one every 2 seasons, maybe you should just put the money up front for a down bag and just avoid that altogether. Another thing to consider, again, with, it is my recommendation to just keep your bag dry and you avoid that whole issue altogether, but a bivy may be necessary for you in order to keep the bag dry, even while you're out, while you're sleeping, I should say. So that is why I went with the MSS, so I'm going to go over that right now for you. So here you can see that I again chose to go with the proven ECW system in the MSS. This is a military issue sleeping bag. It has 4 individual pieces. There's an inner layer, a intermediate layer, and then an outside bivy. This is waterproof. This is great for me because it meets my needs in a variety of different temperatures. So in the warmer months, I may just be able to bring the bivy and that's all I need to sleep in. Or maybe I'll bring this intermediate layer. When it's really cold out, as it is right now, I've got all three. I can rock them together, or you can do it individually or mix and match depending. They all will work standalone or again combined. You can use the button and the zipper system to really button up at night, no pun intended. But this is a great bag for anyone that doesn't, you're not going out on a weekly basis, but maybe monthly, because this bag will last a long time. This is a used issue, but I've used this on many trips myself, and it's worked great for me. It's got a hood at the top too, so it's a mummy bag. But it meets a lot of my requirements because, again, it does have the varying different bags. So I've got different temperatures that this will work for. So I don't need to have a winter bag and then a separate summer bag or a spring bag. I can just use the individual layers or in combination with each other. Now, one thing, again, this is a synthetic bag. So when I have this bag out on my trips, the only time it's compressed is when I'm walking out, hiking out to the location that I'm going to stay at. As soon as I get to the area and I secure a dry place to put this bag, I'm going to open it from its compression bag that it comes with, and I'm going to put it in that dry protected area. When I'm at home, it's uncompressed and it's laying under my bed. You can also, if you've got the space, hang it up in a closet. You just don't want to compress the bag when you're not carrying it, because you're going to reduce its lifespan. So some additional tips to help keep you warm at night. One is obviously have a fire. This is one of the reasons I prefer to have an improvised shelter, because it allows you to use the warmth from a fire. Now you do have to tend it during the night, but again, with some practice you can learn how to build fires that will minimize the amount of work you have to do. Obviously, if you are going to have a fire, make sure you have enough wood to last you through the whole night. It's not fun or smart to walk through the woods at night to go and collect extra firewood. Another tip, this is more of a morale booster too, but make sure you've got good clothes on when you're sleeping at night. A good pair of polypro pants and a top, along with some wool issue socks, are a great way to allow you to retain a little bit of extra warmth at night. And it's also, again, a major morale booster to have a fresh pair of clothes to put on when you go to sleep. Don't wear the stuff you've been sweating and working in all day getting dirty. It feels nice to change into a comfortable pair of clothes before you go to sleep. And a bad night's sleep in the woods sucks. So that's one way to just kind of make yourself a little bit more comfortable at night. One other tip to stay a little bit warmer at night is to churn up the ground that you're going to be sleeping over top of. Now what this will do is create airspace that warm air will linger in and will help you retain a little bit of your heat. Similar to that, you can also take advantage of a sleeping mat like this. And these are great options. Anybody that knocks these is displaying their inexperience. Again, the cold ground will act as a heat sink and it'll pull the heat right from your body. By creating a space between you and that ground, you're creating an extra space that warm air can rest, and it'll also stop you from losing the body heat absorbed into the ground again. Now, in addition to or in place of, if you don't have a sleeping mat, you can put debris such as leaves, dry leaves, you don't want to use wet leaves if you're sleeping directly on it, or pine needles to create an extra layer of space. Best night's sleep you can have, churn up the ground, put down debris, and then sleep on top of one of these with a sleeping bag. You'll feel like you're on an air mattress. They're real nice. So that's something for you to consider as well. So all these things that we talked about will help you retain some extra warmth at night, which will help you to sleep better. There are a couple other points I do like to mention, or I'd like to share with you just as far as what you should have on hand at night when you're sleeping. One is I always keep a pair, and I always take a pair of lightweight, either sandals if it's warmer months, or maybe an old pair of boots, a real lightweight pair of boots, just in case you have to get up in the middle of the night, be it to put some more wood on the fire, or in case nature calls, or in case some type of critter does. Now speaking of that, there was a trip, and if you've ever heard myself or Bone Hunter refer to tactical sandals in conversation through any of our videos, we were down in West Virginia one time on a hunting trip, and we were on a bivouac camp. We had loaded out everything, and we went on a 3-day camping trip, hunting trip. We were hunting from the camp. This was in one of the most bear-populated counties in West Virginia. And so we were a little bit nervous because, obviously we were armed, but just in case. But, we were a little on edge that first night. And about, I don't know, it was probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we heard a little bit of rummaging outside in the camp. So we got up. I had the shotgun, and Bone Hunter had my .45. So we bust out of the tent, and I was wearing sandals. It wasn't funny at the time when we were scouring the camp for probably a squirrel or a raccoon or something, thinking it was a bear, but that's where tactical sandals was born. So if you ever hear us reference that, that's what it's about. But it's good to have a pair of sandals or something like this on hand in case you have to get out of the tent quickly. But it's also good because it will allow your feet to air out. I usually like to do this before I go to sleep, even if it's cold. You just gotta man up and do it. By taking off your boots and your socks, letting your feet get some air, will make your feet a lot nicer for the next day if you've got a lot of hiking or anything going on. On the same note, if you are in an area that you need to be conscious of this, you may want to consider bringing along some sort of personal defense weapon, be it something like this, a .45, or maybe a 10mm pistol for bear, or maybe just pepper spray if you're not a firearm person. Something to keep in mind, don't sleep with your finger on the trigger, but that may be something you need to take into consideration if you're in one of those type of areas. And a final point, if you are having a fire at night, I would suggest keeping some sort of way to dampen the fire or to put it out if it gets out of control. A jug of water or a rock if you're using some sort of fire pit to cut the oxygen off to the fire. So that is part 2 of my bivouac gear loadout series. Hopefully this information has helped you, and let's get on to the next part.